Welcome to day 7 of our 10 for 10, and once again, as always, checking in to make sure you're okay. It's interesting times we're living, which is obviously an understatement, and of course, as human beings, we have to be adaptable. We have to learn how to live under these new restrictions, with these new rules set upon us, and as I've mentioned so many times, just focus on doing this is saving lives. I think that's all we can really focus on at this point. I hope you're doing well. Get some time outside. I'm planning on posting a few tips that I've been reading, which I found useful, and hopefully you can find useful as well. So if you read my Facebook or if you sign up to our Shul newsletter, feel free to have a look at those as well. So let's get straight into it. Today might be a little bit shorter. I have to be somewhere, and funnily enough, although you would think people have a lot more time, it's been very busy times, but yeah, you do need to get that outside time. So we've been looking at some of the minhagim, some of the customs surrounding the Shabbat meal, and we'll continue with that today. And tomorrow we'll start with a new topic. Stay tuned for that. Got to keep some suspense before revealing what we'll be learning tomorrow. So firstly, let's begin today. We spoke about cutting the challah and holding the bread with 10 fingers. We spoke about making a mark. Now, there's a minhag brought in the Shulchan Aruch that the person slicing the bread should not actually hand the piece of bread to another person. So don't give it from hand to hand. You may keep that custom yourself. I know I've been to places for Shabbat dinner where I saw someone do it, and the host or someone else said, "Yeah, we don't pass bread." Now, obviously the question is, why not? Why can we not pass bread? So it says in the book of Eicha that handing a slice of bread, well, we'll get to the book of Eicha in a minute, but handing a slice of bread to another person is unfortunately considered a sign of mourning, based on what's written in Eicha, which says, Persa Tzion be'yadeha, that Tzion spread, Parasat Tzion be'yadeha, that Tzion spreads out her hand, and in the word Persa, which means to stretch forth, implies what we call a slice, a prusa. So a prusa of bread, and therefore when Tzion is in mourning, a slice of bread in a sense is put in her hand. So we don't want to emulate what's written in the book of Eicha, and of course which represents the mourning of the Jewish people. Now, we know that it's customary to dip our bread in salt and to have salt on the table, and the reason for that is that this, and I've spoken about this before, that the home really is a mikdash miyat. The home is a holy place, a sanctuary really of the Jewish people. Although we unfortunately have our shul closed, the home still remains a holy place, and therefore if the home is a mikdash miyat, then the table, the shulchan, represents the altar of the Beit HaMikdash, and eating is almost like giving a sacrifice. And we know that every single sacrifice prior to being burned required salting, and therefore we in a sense emulate it as well by placing salt on the challah, so almost bringing the experience of the Beit HaMikdash to our very home. Now there's a nice minhag, and I think it's really just about being conscious of living in the moment. And I think as Jews we need to live in the moment all the time. It's almost like the rules and the mitzvot demand that we live in the moment. And I think what's happening right now with this coronavirus, it's almost demanding people take their pulse and just check in where they're at. With everything going on beforehand, although yes, there is a lot of anxiety and pressure with media and all that, but really, like to say a bracha, to say a blessing on food, is really living in the moment. It's like I have to be consciously aware of what I'm doing. So mitzvot do that. Now, so I'm accustomed to declaring during the Shabbos meal that I'm eating for the sake of oneg Shabbat. One of the mitzvahs on Shabbos is to have oneg Shabbat, to have the enjoyment and joy on Shabbos. And so by eating, we almost elevating the eating, although they do say that eating on Shabbos itself is already an elevated experience, unlike the weekday where you have to really be focused in terms of eating for the sake of doing a mitzvah and saying that I'm eating this so I can have strength to do a mitzvah. But on Shabbos, some say that it happens memela, automatically, but there are those who have the minhag to say this is for oneg Shabbos. Now, in the book of Esther, it says there's one people that is dispersed and separate, mufuzar umufurad. And our sages say that Haman et Achashverosh, their teeth are large, they eat and drink constantly, saying oneg Shabbat, oneg Yom Tov. And so according to this midrash, that's what the Jewish people said back then. So we also do it to say that we're eating for the sake of enjoying our things on Shabbos. I had guests a number of weeks ago, and one of them said to me, Rabbi, you haven't started to sing Zmirot yet. Why didn't you sing Zmirot yet? I said, don't worry, it's coming. So a lot of people like to sing Shabbat Zmirot, and a lot of the benches, a lot of the Shabbat booklets have different Zmirot. And the question is, why do we sing Zmirot on Shabbos? I mean, you would think, of course, one of the simple reasons would possibly be because it brings joy. It brings life and excitement to the Shabbos. But the Mishnah in Perikei Avot said that if there are 3 people who ate at a table and spoke words of Torah, it's as if that they ate with the Shekhinah, with Hashem, the Almighty, God Almighty, present at their table. Can you imagine having such a guest? Now, accordingly, the multitude who are unfortunately are not necessarily B'nai Torah, who don't necessarily have so much they can study and learn and bring up Divrei Torah, they might not be able to recite Divrei Torah. So the Zmirot themselves have almost inside them teachings of Torah. If you look at some of the famous Zmirot, they are wonderful insight into what Shabbos is, into what Hashem is, and so on and so forth. So by singing Zmirot, it's almost like we are now sanctifying the Shabbos table and making it a holy place. I know that at my table we try to say Dvar Torah. So if you can, and today the honest truth is that there's so many things at our disposal to be able to study, like this, 10 for 10, or all the myriad of shiurim, some wonderful shiurim on online and so on. So it's a wonderful thing to be able to do. And so therefore, if you don't have a Dvar Torah, at least by saying or singing Zmirot, you can do that. Now, at the conclusion of the meal, there are those who have the minhag to rinse their hands with water, called the Maim Achronim. So you spill a little bit of water onto your fingers. Now, there's a number of reasons, but one of the reasons which I often tell people, and as I said, there are other reasons, but one of the reasons is that there used to be this kind of salt called the Melach Stomit, this very heavy salt that used to be on our fingertips. And I guess in the old days, when they ate with that salt, it might get then on the fingertips, and then if they would touch their eyes, and it might get mixed with the salt during the meal, that could, of course, cause damage to their eyesight and so on. So they would wash the fingertips to ensure that it was clean from their hands. Now, there's a number of other things that I would like to go through. Some have the custom to eat fish at each of the Shabbos meals. We know that eating meat and fish in general are a way to have Oneg Shabbos. But why specifically fish? Do some have the minhag at each of the 3 meals? So in the description of creation, when it speaks about the creation of the world, the Torah used the word bracha on 3 consecutive days. On the 5th day regarding creation of fish, on the 6th day the creation of man, on the 7th day on the creation of Shabbos. And so therefore we eat fish on Shabbos to receive the triple bracha, which is stated in Maaseh Bereshit. So because it mentions fish in the terms of bracha, we do that. Also, the numerical value. So Judaism is very into gematria. It's Lashon Kodesh, which is God's language. So there's obviously lots of secrets in that language. But the gematria of the word basar and fish and wine is 7. If you take the single digit form of the numerical value. So there's different ways of counting. And so since Shabbos is the 7th day, we eat these foods in her honor. So Shabbos, we eat fish and meat and drink wine. It's a bit complex how they calculate that, but if you ever hear that at the table, now you know why. And also, eating fish reminds us of the times of Mashiach. Shabbos is almost like Me'ein Mashiach. It's like a bit of a taste of Mashiach. And so there's the Livyatan, the special meal that will be eaten at the Feast of Mashiach. Some say that it's a type of fish, that it's going to be the Livyatan. And so we eat the fish on Shabbos to recall the day in which there will be the complete and perfect Shabbos, which will be, of course, the day of when Mashiach comes. There's also a custom to have kugel. I know we have here on Friday night at South Caulfield Shul kugel, but in fact there's a minhag. Why do we have kugel, especially at the Shabbos morning meal? And the answer is to recall the manna bread, regarding which the pasuk says, and the manna was like a coriander seed, and Rashi says round like a coriander seed. So therefore we eat on Shabbos a food which is round, a kigel, like a circle, ke'igul, kugel, ke'igul, like a circle, and that's why we have kugel on Shabbos. Ke'igul is like a circle. Now, the last one which we'll end with is cholent. Now, cholent's a very important one, because cholent is, of course, amazing. Everyone loves cholent, and one of the reasons why we eat cholent is because it almost recognize if a person has a hot food on Shabbos, it recognizes the oral tradition, the oral law. Because according to the heretics and the tziddukim who challenged the oral tradition and said only the written Torah we should follow, the oral tradition is just man-made, it's got nothing to do with godliness. It says in the Torah, Lo tevaru eish, you shouldn't have a fire in your home on Shabbos. And so therefore these heretics used to not have any fire in their house on Shabbos. There would be no lights, no candles, of course. Whereas we know that according to the oral tradition, it means that you can't start a fire on Shabbos. If the fire began before Shabbos, then it's okay to have. Of course, the different rules of having a blech in terms of cooking and so on, but you can have hot food on Shabbos provided you take the right steps. And therefore, the Chachamim, the sages, added and said, we want to specifically have hot food on Shabbos day to prove that the oral tradition is correct and to show the world around us and to these heretics that we believe in the oral tradition and it's perfectly okay. And so therefore having hot food on Shabbos is almost a testament to the Torah Shebal Peh and the Torah Shebichtav as being one and the same one unit. So have that hot food, it's good. And just to end off, I did hear that there are something called the cholent angels that come and they make sure that the cholent stays good. And I guess going back to our first year, if you work hard and if you behave in the week, maybe the cholent angels do a better job. I've had unfortunate experiences where my cholent has burnt, so perhaps the angels weren't happy with me. But some weeks it's been fantastic and maybe the angels were really pleased with the way I was behaving. So have a wonderful day, a wonderful rest of the afternoon, whatever time it is that you watch this, and stay tuned for day 8 where we start a new topic. All the best, keep safe, and blessings.